Hello, welcome to What the Folk. It's the end of October, so it's the last ghost story this month, I'm afraid. Sorry to say. But, all good things and all that. The stories I have for you today are three more from my Katherine Briggs wonderful collection. These are more narratives, so they're what I would actually call more folk tales about ghosts rather than ghost stories. I mean, really, ghost stories can kind of be divided into two categories. Stories where it is a description of a haunting of some kind, or a tale involving a ghost. That's what these are primarily, because I thought we could do this with a bit of flavour. I have to apologise for my atrocious accent in the last story, as, it's a dialect story with no clear dialect given, so I had to improvise. Sort of middling Yorkshire Irish, I think. Awful, I know, awful. But Binori. There were two sisters in a bowery. A knight came to court the first, but he loved the second. The elder sister was sorely vexed at it, and one day she said, "Come down with me to stand and see our father's ship come to shore." The younger stood on a stone, and the elder pushed her in. "Oh, sister, reach out your hand, and you shall be heir of all I have. If I leave you to sink, I shall still be your heir. Oh, sister, reach me your glove, and sweet William shall be yours. He shall be mine if I let you sink. It was your cherry cheeks and golden hair that parted us." The younger sister was tossed up and down till she drifted into the mill dam of Binari. The miller's daughter saw something white in the water and called her father to draw the dam, thinking a mermaid was in or a swan. But they drew out a drowned woman in silks and jewels. The king's harper was passing by. He grieved at the sight, and made her breastbone into a harp and strung it with her golden hair. When he got to the king's hall, he set the harp on a stone, and it played and sang of its own accord. It sang, "Here sits my father the king, and my mother the queen. There stands my brother Hugh, and my true love William." But the last song it sang was, "Woe to my sister, false Helen." Jack and the Ghosts. Once there was a lad called Jack, and he was passing a churchyard at night. He saw three ghosts fighting. He hurried past, but the ghosts came after him and brought him back to settle their dispute. They were well pleased with the way he settled it, and they gave him three presents, a piece of dough, and a needle, and some cloth. They told him these would be of great use to him, for they were magic. So Jack went his way till he came to a town, and the first shop he came to was a baker's shop, and it was filled with ancient cakes, 150 years old or so. He went into the shop, but there was nothing fit to eat there, and the baker told him that the Queen had ordered him to bake her a cake, but he only had a pound of flour in the place. "Leave it to me," said Jack, and alone went into the bakehouse, and said to the dough, "Do your work." And the dough set to, baked itself into a beautiful cake, and cakes and bread and pies until the shop was full. The baker was delighted and begged Jack to stay with him. But Jack wouldn't bide. He went on to the next shop, and that was a tailor's full of old ragged clothes. The tailor was in despair because the Queen had ordered him to make her a most beautiful frock, and he had nothing to make it of. So Jack set the cloth to work and made a most beautiful frock embroidered with gold. And the tailor took it to the Queen and begged Jack to stay with him, but Jack would not bide. The next shop he came to was a shoemaker, and the shoemaker had been ordered to make grand shoes for the Queen. And here the needle set to and stitched until it made shoes for the Queen and the princes and the whole court besides. Then the Queen sent out a notice that she wanted the palace done up, and Jack presented himself with a needle and his cloth, and did up the place so that there was nothing to equal it, and the Queen gave him a great reward. But about this time pigs began to go missing from the royal pigsty, and for some reason or another they suspected Jack. So they put a watch on him, and one night they caught him carrying a pig through the door instead of out. So they married him to the king's daughter, and they lived happily all their days. The Noontide Ghost. "'Tis an ancient tale they do tell about farm. There were a queer chap kept a hanging round village. Folk did see him to owl and light and night time. Some did say he shined like a spunky, as you call a jack-o'-lantern, but some folks'll tell you he ain't anything. He come in noontime too, but all was afraid to speak to him, for all his clothes were of a strange fashion. Then one noon he came to view outside our barn door, and the granny couldn't bear his sorrow. She ups and speaks to him, as priest didn't say she should. "In the name of the Lord, why troublest thou me?" she said, and I called out, "You poor unhappy soul, come tell I." And the old grey ghost he says, "Where my mill be, and then my son's cottage by the oak coppice. There be a girt stone mill by river and no cottage, and only one girt old oak." Then the granny she sees the rights of it. "Be church still there? They've got a new stone once since I went to market 's morning, and I did promise Bet I'dn't be late. Where be my dear old wife?" The granny she sees how 'twas, and she kept her peace and only says, "A queer sort of chap, and we got to wagering games and an old merriment, and he wanted me to stay longer, but I gainsaid him. Bet who'd be awaiting. Where be my dear wife?" And then they'd say there was light, and a wind that smelled sweet as a primrose bank. The voice like thistle in song said, "Come who am now, my dear. You don't belong down there no more. Come on, Una now." And the old ghost he gave a beautiful smile, and he went clean away. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. For November, we're going to be doing stories from the sea. So I'm going to be telling some stories of the Celtic sea gods, and I know Dan has some stories about Selkies he wants to talk about. So I hope you enjoyed that. Enjoy November.